Welcome to another edition of the BrownZone.com Zone Coverage Podcast. My name is Andy Barch, as always, joined by Scott Petrak, the Browns beat reporter for the Chronicle, Telegram, the Medina Gazette, and, of course, at BrownZone.com. Scott, great to catch up as always. We're recording this on a Thursday, and that means we are a day away from finally seeing the Browns out on the practice field. Scott, this is a day I think a lot of us thought we'd never see again if you go all the way back to March when this pandemic really began to hit the ground running, and we'll finally get a chance to see the Browns out there again.
Yeah, you're right, Bull, and it is. It's something that I think there was no certainty that it would happen. I'm glad that it's happened. I think, and we've talked about it, you got all the uncertainty in high school football and college. And not to say that there's no uncertainty in the NFL situation, but it feels much more certain to me that we're at least going to have a start to the season. We'll see how the virus reacts, but take that out of the equation for a minute, if it's even possible. I'm just looking forward to seeing some football, and I'll get to be out there tomorrow, and I'll get to watch Baker throw, and I get to watch Jedrick Wills probably try to block Myles Garrett, and it feels like a long time coming.
We're going to get into that practice a little bit later on. I know you've got something coming out a little bit later on today or maybe early tomorrow talking about that first day of practice, so we'll save that for last. We'll talk about a veteran guard that's been brought in for a free agent visit, what that running game could look like, and also a huge development with the NFL and NFLPA agreeing to daily COVID-19 testing. But, Scott, let's begin with veteran guard Ronald Landry. He visited the Browns, made a free agent visit, 31 years old. If he and the Browns were able to come to terms, what do you think he could bring to the table?
Well, it's interesting, Bull. To me, this is even more – it's not just about Ronald Landry, right? I mean, he's a guy, so we need to mention his name and talk about him. But it's kind of where the guard situation stands. And it was an unknown – even a couple of weeks ago, right? You had Wyatt Teller, the incumbent. I've been calling him that. He started the final 9 games last year, but I don't think there's anybody who said, yeah, he's guaranteed to keep the starting job. And then you had 3 guards opt out due to coronavirus concerns. Drew Forbes, who was a 6th-round pick a year ago, I think people inside the team looked at him as a real contender to win the job away from Wyatt Teller. And he opts out. And then Malcolm Pridgeon and Colby Gossett. So there's 3 guards. So not that any of those guys are huge names, but it depletes the depth, right? All of a sudden you don't have any guards. So the Browns signed a couple guys, Michael Dunn, Javon Fair, who is from Akron. But neither of those guys has played a game in the league. So I think Andrew Berry, the GM, looked around and said, you know what? I need somebody that can come in and at least compete with Wyatt Teller and possibly surpass Wyatt Teller. And that guy looks like it could be Ronald Landry. He was in town for a visit yesterday. I don't know if he's still here. And obviously money has to be worked out. The guy's started, I think, 77 games in the league. He's played with Denver. He played with Dallas. He's had some injuries lately. Denver declined the option on his contract for this year. But he's a guy that has a much better track record than Wyatt Teller. He's older, he's 31. But at least it could give you options. And I think that's what Andrew Berry's looking for. Now, I don't think right guard is going to be the end-all, be-all for this team. I think if your tackles play well and the Browns upgraded both tackle spots and you got a good center and a good left guard, you can get by with mediocre right guard. But I can see also the other side that says, hey, we got 4 solid spots. Let's not kind of sabotage that with a subpar fit guy and go and try to get at least some competition in there in that right guard spot.
Well, and very clearly, they're going to need a lot out of that spot because they've got high expectations for what should be a high-octane running game this year, Scott. I know Nick Chubb spoke earlier in the week. He reflected on head coach Kevin Stefanski and some of the things they expect to put in place with a heavier emphasis on the running game. He also went into detail talking about his offseason, which detailed workouts with Kareem Hunt over in Westlake. Scott, what were some of your major takeaways from some of the comments made by Nick Chubb?
I think the biggest one, Bull, was that he's motivated to try to win that rushing title. And, Nick is not by any means a stats guy, a me-first guy. You talk to his teammates, you talk to his coaches, they love the team first, unselfish attitude. But he should have won the rushing title a year ago, right? He had a big lead going into the final 2 weeks, and then for whatever reason, Freddie Kitchens didn't give him the ball. The offense struggled, and he winds up with, I think, 41 and 45 yards his last 2 weeks. Derrick Henry goes off in the finale for Tennessee and passes him. And I asked Nick if he was bothered by that all offseason. There's something that kind of stuck with you. So, Nick Chubb is motivated, period. And if you give him a little extra motivation, I think it could lead to huge things this year. Now, the only thing holding him back for anybody who wants to draft him in fantasy football is Kareem Hunt's presence. And Kareem Hunt won a rushing title, right? When he was a rookie with the Chiefs in 2017, Hunt won a rushing title. So this is a guy who, when he's not suspended, when he's healthy, is arguably a top 10 back. I'm not sure you can argue. He's probably a top 10 back. Can you argue the top 5? So I think Kevin Stefanski will have decisions to make about how he's going to divide playing time, divide carries between the running backs. And Nick Chubb talked about that. And he said, hey, however they want to do it is fine. If we're winning, it's fine. Said all the right things. And even said, like you mentioned, Bull, that he spent some time in Westlake running a hill with Kareem during the offseason. So those guys get along well. But you know how it goes. If the Browns lose and lose early, that's when there's a potential for griping. And whether it's between those two running backs, and then you include the playmakers, OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, how are they going to divide the touches when you look and you go, man, OBJ is a superstar, right? Landry's been super consistent. Austin Hooper's been to the Pro Bowl the last 2 years. Kareem Hunt's, who we just said he was. Then you have Nick Chubb, who might be the best of all of them. So it's going to be fascinating to see just how much the Browns rely on Chubb specifically, because I am convinced they're going to run the ball a bunch.
Well, it would be hard to imagine an offense where they're not running it a bunch based on what we have seen with Coach Stefanski and his track record. And you've got to like the group that they've assembled in front of both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So I think we're all really interested in seeing how that develops throughout the course of the season. Scott, we'll turn our attention now to this big development between the NFL and the NFLPA finally agreeing to daily COVID-19 testing. I know that was something that J.C. Tretter was really pushing hard for the Players Union. Scott, let's talk about the process to get to this point and how instrumental this is going to be, especially when we get into the season.
Well, I think it's very interesting, Bull. And it wasn't really on my radar until we talked to J.C. Tretter a week ago. And he brought it up unsolicited a few times. And finally, I followed up with him. So, JC, are you saying the NFL needs daily testing to continue? Because the original agreement, which had only been signed days or a week earlier, had the first 14 days of training camp, players were tested every day. And then if the league came in under, I want to say 5% positive tests, then it went to every other day. Right, and that had been agreed upon, and that's, the medical people had weighed in, and the union had weighed in, and the owners had weighed in. Well, at some point, and baseball had a lot to do with this, because they do every other day testing. We've seen what happened with the Marlins, and we saw what happened with the Cardinals. J.C. Tretter, and I'm sure he's not just speaking for himself, I'm sure it's got the union behind him, said, hey, we need to test every day. Look at the lag time, and look at the issues the baseball's having when there's any lag time between tests, right? Just those 2 days instead of 1 day, whatever it is, it really can lead to outbreaks of the virus. And we've seen the Cardinals season get shut down, right? I don't know the last time they played. They're way behind everybody else. We saw what happened to the Marlins. So Tretter kind of put that on everyone's radar, at least in my estimation, and then went in the union, went to the league, and they were able to agree on this and agree that the best thing going forward, and it's not just for the safety of the players, of course, it's paramount, it's also for the benefit of the league, that you don't have teams get outbreaks, that you don't have teams have to shut down, or you put your best players on the COVID list, right? I mean, that's, if you're Roger Goodell, one of your big fears is Tom Brady or Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, get the virus and they miss a big game, right? And you just don't want to see that happen to anybody, especially your biggest players. So I think they came to an understanding that, hey, this is the best situation. Yes, it's more expensive, but let's continue it. And the union said at least through September 5th. The league's memo said until further notice. So we're going to have everyday testing at least for another 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll see, okay, is it really under control? Are there no positive tests? Maybe you can back off. But the danger is you back off. There's no bubble here. One of the players gets it. He brings it back to the facility, and then we're looking at an outbreak. So I think just the understanding of the virus, watching what happened in baseball, led the union and J.C. Tretter to say, hey, we need to make this substantial change because it is a substantial change. And I like the fact that the league cooperated and agreed, and they were able to get this done.
And it just seems like it adds peace of mind for the players, for the coaches, everybody inside that building. And I think it also adds peace of mind, too, when you're traveling. And I think this has become the biggest issue in baseball, too. Most guys say when they're playing at home, it doesn't seem like it's a really big deal, but the concerns really come into play when you go out on the road. Now, granted, baseball and football are a little bit different. Baseball, you're on the road a little bit longer. The series is a little bit longer, whereas football, you're on the road for maybe a day or two or a night or two. But I think it just offers peace of mind, Scott, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I know the players have concerns about travel. Not the same thing as we've seen with the Indians with Zach Plesac and Mike Clevenger getting away. I mean, that's possible for an NFL player, right? But the NFL has already said you're not allowed to leave the hotel on the road. Now, that doesn't mean players won't try, but it's only one night as opposed to, the Indians go on a 6-game road trip. There's more temptation there. But I think the peace of mind comes into just everyday, Bull. If you're J.C. Tretter, and I keep bringing him up because he's a union president, but it could be anybody, Jarvis Landry, and you look around that locker room, and it's a big locker room, and now it's divided. But my point is you look around the roster, right? And you see upwards of 70 guys between guys on the roster, guys on the practice squad. All it takes is one of those guys to do something irresponsible, and it can impact you. And it can impact not only you and your team and your team's success, it can impact your family, right? J.C. Trenner's wife is pregnant. He's not even living at home right now. He's living in the team hotel just to see how this works and just to get a level of comfort that there won't be any early outbreaks. So you take that into consideration, you look and go, hey, this, and I'm not picking on anybody specific, this undrafted rookie, can I trust him? Do I know that he did not go out to the bar last night? And you can't, right? How do you get that level of trust with 70 other guys? It's really difficult. What makes it easier is if you go, well, I know he had a negative test yesterday. I know he did a negative test the day before. And I know he's going to have a negative test tomorrow. And if he didn't, he was only around us for 12 hours, right, before the positive test shows up. I just think there is a level of comfort and a peace of mind there saying we're going to catch it early, and that's going to help. And I think that's why it's a significant improvement, and it gives the league, again, a chance to have a season when we're watching baseball and wondering if baseball will be able to finish its season.
You mentioned a level of comfort, and I think we'll all get at least a little bit of that when practice finally begins tomorrow. On Friday afternoon, they'll stream these practices from 2 to 4. Scott, I know you have an article coming out a little bit later today or tomorrow morning detailing some of the specifics that you'll be watching for at least over the first couple of days of practice. Well, what exactly will you be watching for in the early stages of all of this?
Yeah, Bull, a couple of weeks ago, I did my standard training camp previews just because the Browns are getting ready to report, and I talked about position battles, and I talked about, the key players. And this, to me, is, it's been a couple of weeks. The Browns have been around, but they've only been doing strength and conditioning, and they started to do individual drills yesterday. But it dawned on me, like I said at the top, that I haven't seen real football in person in 7+ months. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I feel bad that the fans aren't going to be able to watch, and I completely understand that decision, but I feel bad, right? You see this a lot of the same faces every year, right? My buddy's dad, I'll look in the stands, and he just happens to be there one day watching practice. And I feel bad for those guys, but I also would then appreciate the fact that I get to watch practice for the next 3 weeks. And just the things off the jump that I'm looking to check out. Andrew Berry talked about how he put 4 pounds of lean muscle on. and how he's in much better shape, and he's dropped some body fat. I want to see how that looks, right? I haven't seen Baker up close in forever. I want to see how he looks. Is he moving better? Because that's what matters is not, it doesn't matter what his physique is. How does that translate to football? Is he moving better inside and outside of the pocket? I want to look at that. I want to see Jedrick Wills. I've watched plenty of film on the number 10 pick out of Alabama. I want to see him in person. I want to see how his feet move. I want to see him go against Myles Garrett, right? He's not going to have a preseason to prepare, so Myles Garrett is a good test. Now, they're not in pads until the 17th, so that's Monday, right? But even Friday and Sunday, we get to see him not in pads, and you get to see the footwork, and I assume I'm going to get to see him against Myles Garrett, and that should be telling as we watch over the next 3 weeks. How about the health of OBJ and Jarvis Landry, right? Both needed surgery after last season. Jarvis had the extensive hip. OBJ had the core muscle surgery, not as serious. How are they moving, right? We watched them last year, but they both had injuries last year. So can you tell the difference in OBJ? He would tell you he could. Can I tell? And if I can, how impressive is that? Because I was impressed with them last year, right? So those are three things off the top of my head. Kevin Stefanski, how does he handle being on the field with his players? I've never seen him relate to his players. This gives you the first chance just to see what he does in drills, how he, is he all offense? Does he spend some time with the defense? Is he the guy calling the plays? And then finally is, how different is it in the age of Corona, right? Are the Browns still going to huddle? Do you still see the same contact? Are they careful about it? Does the whistle blow faster? I just think there's going to be so much to kind of absorb and take in, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow at about 2:25.
Yeah, it should certainly be very, very interesting to see how all of this is handled, and I think we all have many, many questions, and it'll take more than just a few days to sort through all of it, but I think tomorrow will be pretty exciting just to see these guys back out on the field again for the first time in a very long time. All right, Scott, we've come back around to this point in the podcast where we get a chance to examine your golf game, and seems like Pleasant Valley has been a pretty popular spot for you.
Well, it has been, Bull, but I tell you what, the last week, I want to say since we last talked, I've only been able to get out one time. I think the weather is a factor, then the Browns starting to get busier was a factor, but I was able to get out to Bunker Hill, also in Medina, really just down Hamilton Road from Pleasant Valley. I was able to get out there earlier this week, and I was pleasantly surprised. I played pretty well for not having played in a week or so. And I hit 3 iron shots really close. And I was only able to convert 2 of them to birdie. I missed about a 3.5 footer on number 5 or 6. Number 5. But I would say the best shot was a number 16. It's a short downhill par 4. It's almost drivable for some. I used to always hit driver there, but I never got there, and there's trouble right and left. So I decided to play smart, hit a 5-iron off the tee, had a wedge in, and I pulled the wedge just a hair because I wasn't aiming dead at the flag, which was kind of tucked a little bit to the left. But I hit it right at the flag. It landed about 6 feet short and rolled up to 9 inches. So I didn't get a whole lot of kick-in birdies, but I did there, and it really helped the scorecard, obviously, when you can circle a couple on the scorecard. So I think there's no doubt that would have to be the best shot, my golf shot of the week.
Very nice. Well, hopefully you'll have a whole new set of shots to talk about. I know you're on your way to tee off in just a few minutes here down at Pleasant Valley, right?
That's true. I'm able to sneak one in before we get into this gauntlet of practice. So it'll probably be this round, and then the Browns are off Saturday, but I probably won't get out Saturday, and then they're not off again until next Friday. So I might have to go from today until next Friday, but I'm glad I was able to get out today. So.
Great stuff. Well, Scott, as always, a lot of fun to sit down and record another podcast. And next week at this time, we will have at least a few days of training camp to talk about. Looking forward to that for sure.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a bunch to talk about from here on out, Bull. I can't wait.
Good stuff. Thank you, Scott. Again, Scott Petrak with the Chronicle Telegram, the Medina Gazette, and, of course, at brownzone.com. Time for us to wrap things up here as we bring another edition of the brownzone.com zone coverage podcast to a close. For Scott Petrak, this is Andy Bull Barch saying thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to all of you again next week.